Welcome to the NWR Virtual Resources Conference, May 2020. We have West African Resources on the line with us today. West African Resources is West Africa's newest gold producer, pouring first gold at its Sanbrado project in March 2020 ahead of schedule and under budget. West African expects to produce more than 300,000 ounces of gold from Sanbrado in its first year of production. While the company continues exploration at Sanbrado to extend mine life and/or increase gold production, West African last week announced its acquisition of the nearby 1.1 million ounce Toega gold deposit from B2 Gold. Richard Hyde joins us today. Richard is West African's Executive Chairman and CEO. Richard is a geologist with 25 years of experience in the mining industry and nearly 20 years of experience in West Africa specifically. Richard has managed large exploration and development projects for gold and base metals in Australia, Africa, and Eastern Europe. Founding West African Resources, he has led the company from incorporation in 2007 through its IPO in 2010 to the achievement of its status as a gold producer earlier this year. Take it away for us, Richard.
Okay, thank you very much. And look, thanks to Nathan and the team at NWR for hosting this virtual conference. Considering what we're all going through at the moment, it's nice to have a bit of a relief and nice to have a chance to talk to some of our shareholders. So just moving on to the presentation, we've got some forward-looking statements here, so I'd encourage anyone who has a bit of interest in this to read it. There's also more information on our website. So yes, the last few months for West African have been monumental for us. We've managed to finish building Sanbrado ahead of schedule. We've commissioned, and that came in about 10 weeks ahead of schedule and about $20 million US under budget. We've ramped up pretty well. We're currently processing oxide open pit ore, and we're doing parcels of underground development ore when they come through. And we're expecting to get our first stoping ore from the September quarter this year. Because we've come in early, currently we are processing some lower grade oxide material. So, you know, I've been sort of advising our investors that they should be expecting our full run rate of 300,000 ounces from July 1, which is the same quarter that stoping material comes into the schedule. We're still targeting our production over the first 5 years of 217,000 ounces. There will be some updates to that, obviously, with the recent acquisition from Toega. Currently, we've got about 3 million ounces in resource, 1.7 million ounces in reserve. And look, we're going to start work on Toega during this wet season and look to get the 1.1 million ounces of resource into JORC resource, and that'll bring up our overall ounces in the company in resource to over 4 million ounces. And we suspect, or we expect, a significant portion of the Toega resource to convert as well, given that you know, it's currently constrained by a US 1400 gold optimized pit. Just on our capital structure, so not many changes here. The update here for investors is that, you know, we've actually started building cash. Our cash at the end of April is about 42.5 million US dollars. We've also got our first gold shipment away, and that's about 23 million US in total. We've fully drawn our debt with Taurus, and we're not required to make our first repayment until March 21. And at the time of putting this presentation together, we had a market cap of about 660 million Australian. We've got the slide in here of Burkina. Obviously, we've been exploring and sort of developing in Burkina for the best part of 10 years. Historically, it's been a very stable place for investment. The northern and eastern parts of Burkina in recent times have been a bit unstable. We're permitted under the new mining code, so 2015 mining code, which is a 27.5% corporate tax rate, a 10% government-free carry, 5% royalty, and a 1% community dividend. In addition to the Sanbrado project, we've got another sort of 900 or nearly 1,000 square kilometres of ground in Burkina, We've also recently put together a project in the west called the Kamoe project, which we talked about briefly in our last quarterly report. The board of management obviously hasn't changed much. Some of our senior management are stuck on site or stuck in France or not able to return back to site at the moment, but that's we're working on this at the moment with some rotations using charter planes in conjunction with other companies. So the actual project is complete, commissioning is complete, and we're targeting commercial production later this quarter. You can see a nice slide there of the mills and the process plant. The overall project metrics, this will improve when we add in Toega, but from the study that we completed in 2019, it's a conventional contract open pit underground mining operation. We're ramping up on the oxide open pits at the moment, and we're processing some of the development ore from the underground as those parcels of underground ore come through. Really, the driver behind the project is the high-grade underground deposit of M1 South. And as I said before, we're targeting production of around 220,000 ounces for the first 5 years. Once we've worked in Toega into the mine schedule later next year, we'll provide the market update with an updated production schedule. But we see that there's potential for us to sustain sort of around 200,000 ounces for the best part of 10 years with that project being added into the mine schedule. Obviously, we've delivered the project and we've come in under budget. We've got relatively low costs, life of mine, and we've got some numbers at the bottom of this slide just showing some of the economics at a $1,500 gold price. Obviously, we're seeing a higher price than that at the moment. So the big driver of the project is M1 South. You can see on this slide that we're showing the actual development in dark grey, and then the proposed development or the future development in light grey. Currently, we're developing the 2120 level, which is 180 metres beneath surface, and then we'll come back up in 25 metre panels above that, develop those drives, and then we'll start dropping stopes in Q3, and they'll be dropped from 2120 up, so a bottom-up mining method. The grade control is ongoing, but we've pretty much completed the first panel, which is inside that maroon box. We've had some spectacular results that are highlighted here. So 13 metres at 133 grams, 13 at 64, 17.5 at 27, 7 at 40. And you can see these are getting close to sort of true widths of the mineralisation through this panel. So it's some nice sort of thick zones of high grade. Overall, we're pretty happy with the way the grade control drilling has reconciled with the model. Now, obviously, we think there's a lot more to go here. We've got about 6 years of mine life on the current ore reserve. We did do some deep drilling in 2018, and we were mobilising a rig back to site in early or sort of mid-March. We had to sort of, basically the drillers have set up camp, and then they've had to demobilise until the restrictions in Burkina Faso have been lifted. So last night we heard that there are further restrictions being lifted, so that's good news. But we're very keen to get back in here drilling M1 South, and the plan here is to extend it by another 3 or 4 years to build out the underground mine life to 10 years and marry that up with the open pit schedule, which is also over 10 years, so we get a full valuation. So look, I'd expect that we can start drilling again next quarter, and when this program's ready to roll out. This is the photo of our team on site from our first gold shipment. So there's over 400 kilos of gold that's just gone out, which some of these people have been stuck on site for since January. Some of them were due back on rotation or back home a number of weeks ago. So it's amazing how a table of gold can make you feel good, and certainly the positive feedback we've had from our people on site has been excellent. I wish I could have been there for it, but unfortunately, the situation is what it is right now. There's some more sort of happy snaps from the key people on site. On the top left, we've got Danny Kutsia and Matt Wilcox, who were responsible for the build. We've got myself and Lyndon Hopkins, our Chief Operating Officer on the right, top right, Vince Morel and Abdul Rasman Giri, one of our long-term serving senior geologists on site, who's been involved since discovery, and then the first 2 bars of gold that were poured on site when I was there, and we kind of just made it home before borders closed, and did our 2 weeks isolation at home before they made us isolate in a hotel. So it's been a pretty busy few months for us. So back on the underground, currently we're about 200 metres below surface. We've done over 2,200 metres of development since we've started. We processed our first development ore in April, so we drove into our first ore drive in early March, and we're on track to drop our first stope in September, and that's when we'll really see the grade of what we're processing really pick up, and we'll start producing a lot more ounces than we are currently. Just moving on to E&S, we've been working really hard with our local stakeholders. We're in the process of upgrading all of our work from the level that we use for our permitting in Burkina to IFC standards. We're pretty proud that we've got over 25% of our workforce is female. We are the largest local employer in the region, and we've received a lot of support from our local stakeholders and also from the government through this current period. Again, I'm talking to our team. So we've currently got a bit less than 600 people on site because we've trimmed our site down to the bare minimum. So we've got a kind of a skeleton crew working in all areas of open pit, underground, and process plant. And we kind of closed our site in late March as the sort of situation with coronavirus was deteriorating. So far we've actually got through pretty well. We do have some tired people on site who are hopefully we can get a rotation out by the end of this week. But so far we haven't had any serious cases of corona. We've had no positive cases either, which is very, very good. So just quickly moving on to the Toega acquisition. So this has been work in progress with B2 Gold for quite a while. We've got a very good relationship with them. Look, it makes sense from a number of angles. It brings the project forward, and it makes it brings it into development. It's only about 14 kilometres away from our project, so we're probably looking at $1.50 or $2 per tonne to truck it up the road to our project. It does have a higher resource grade than the life of mine grade of the M5 open pit, which is the bulk of the feed for the plant. And by the time we get into sort of year 4 or 5 of our project, we should see a substantial sort of step up in overall ounces produced at Sanbrado, because Toega's almost double the grade of the ore that we would be processing from the open pits at that time. So it's got an existing resource of 1.1 million ounces. That's entirely constrained within a $1,400 US open pit. So we think there's plenty of upside with respect to the gold price. There's a number of good targets around that haven't been drilled yet. So and the Toega surface expression outcrops, there's about a 600 metre strike of artisanals, and historically there was a very strong geochem anomaly over it as well. There's a number of other geochem anomalies on the target, on the permit that we'll look to target from Q3, Q4 onwards this year. And we're pretty certain this is going to really bump up our profile for the back end of mid to back end of our production at Sanbrado. And so talking about production here, we've got obviously our current profile. The deep drilling at M1 South, we're looking to boost the back end of the schedule, bring that back up to about 150,000 ounces per annum. And look, by bringing in Toega and displacing some of the lower grade material from M5, we think we can bring that up closer to 200,000 ounces per annum, from years 5 out to 10, which it makes Sanbrado into a really substantial deposit, generating a lot of free cash flow. So just quickly moving on to production update. We're ramping up to our full production for Q3 this year, and so investors should be expecting us to hit our our milestone of 300,000 ounces from sort of July 1 to June 30, due to the fact that we brought in the plant about 10 weeks early. We've enacted our COVID response plan, so far so good. We've been working with our local community, providing hand washing stations. We've done education programs explaining the virus, and we've also basically been applying all of the WA Health Department standards or recommendations on site since February this year. So we haven't had any material impact on operations. We do have some tired people on site who are still working, and we're looking to rotate some people in the next few weeks. So we've had continuous operations for approximately 7 weeks since the 8th of March. Like I said, we're processing open pit oxide ore and some development ore when it comes through. We're getting roughly sort of 4,000 or 5,000 tonnes of development ore per month at some pretty good grades. The open pits and underground so far are reconciling pretty well to model. And for March, we processed 200,000 tonnes at 1.3 with 92% recovery. And again, in April, we processed about 240,000 tonnes at 1.3 at about 91% recovery. So in the main pit at M5, we're now beneath all the historic workings, and we're seeing a lot more residual material or in situ material. So we're actually planning to get higher grade open pit ore for the next quarter, and obviously we'll see a step change when we start when we drop the first stope, which is planned for the September quarter as well. And the slide on the right there shows some of the spectacular mineralisation that we've seen in this first ore drive. And there's been a number of faces with a lot of visible gold, which is encouraging. And one of the good things that we are seeing is the fact that our model that we had going through feasibility study is standing up now that we're actually in production underground. So what we're seeing correlates very well with our model. So lastly, just getting on the last slide. So catalysts coming forward for the company. Obviously, we've completed our build and commissioning. We've commenced our underground ore development in March. So a few ticks here. We didn't get started drilling, unfortunately, due to coronavirus and restrictions in place in Burkina, but we are looking at doing that as soon as we can. Obviously, we've completed our gold pour and commissioning. We're targeting commercial production this quarter, looking for sort of steady state production just of 7,000 to 8,000 tonnes a day on the plant. And then we look to step that up in Q3 once we've got through the current situation with coronavirus and we've built our water stocks back up during the wet season. We're expecting stoping ore in Q3 as well, start doing the deep drilling at M1 South and build out that underground reserve for 10 years. That's our focus, and start work on Toega end of Q3, early Q4, depending on wet season. And look, once we've got through those milestones, we'll be in a position to provide guidance for the first time late this year for 2021. A couple of slides here just showing the resources reserves and then also the resources for Toega, which we just acquired. Thanks very much. So this is another happy photo from site. I'm happy to take any questions that anyone might have.
Thanks, Richard, for that presentation. We have a couple of questions that are both quite similar to ask you first up. Someone or a couple of people are wondering, have you hedged your gold production?
Right, so look, the view of the board and sort of our view is that given where our costs are, we don't see a real need to hedge. Look, our intention going forward is to remain largely unhedged. We have no hedging at the moment. It wasn't a requirement with our project finance facility with Taurus. And also, obviously, given the timing of our build and also the recent gold price rise, it's worked in our favour.
Most definitely. And as stated in your technical report, power is generated by a heavy oil power station. Is there any chance that you can hedge oil going forward or store it and then benefit from current oil prices in the future? Diesel costs are calculated at $1.05 and the price is now half of that.
Well, there's always a chance. Like we could look at purchasing some derivatives for oil or for fuel. It's not something we're kind of considering at the moment. We're just focused on delivering the project and and executing. So oil's gone down, gold's gone up. So we're in a good situation. The fuel price in Burkina is fixed, and look, that's going to be a win for the government, which is kind of good for them in the current situation.
Mm-hmm. So on balance, a good situation there. And
Yeah.
Richard, do you envisage paying dividends in calendar year 2021?
Look, I think that's a bit early for us. Our focus will be to pay down debt with Taurus as quickly as possible. So in the short term, build some cash, look to start paying down either late this year or early next year. You know, our first repayment's not due until March 21. And then also, you know, look, we've managed to keep most of our team together from the build at Sanbrado. So we're actively looking to, you know, to build the company into a 2 or 3 mine company operation, you know, through the same sort of methodology that we used at Sanbrado, which was, you know, study it well, do all the work to a high standard, and obviously, you know, the addition of Toyga is very timely as well, because it builds production into the future. So that's really our focus going forward.
Thank you so much for joining us on the call today, Richard. It was great to hear from you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for sticking around. Up next, we have Canyon Resources. Canyon is developing the Minim Martap bauxite project in Cameroon. They'll be up in a couple of minutes' time if you want to buzz back in then. Thank you.